All right, I wanted to chat with you a little bit about Medigap policies. It's as you come on to Social Security, you're at 65, you're going to be put in a situation where you're going to have to make some decisions about Medicare and how you want to handle Medicare. So let's just first kind of just do some informational sharing. When you turn 65, yes, you're entitled to Medicare. If you've worked for more than 10 years, you're going to have Medicare Part A for free, which covers your hospitalizations, and Medicare Part B, deals with more of the services side, doctors, healthcare. From that perspective, you will be paying, I think this year is $185 a month. And that will give you 80/20 coverage for when you do have a medical situation. Okay. So with that said, you're going to be thinking about, okay, do I want to pay the 20%? Do I have enough money to pay that 20%? Or am I going to look for some additional coverage? Medigap coverage adds to or handles much of that 20% number. It's important to understand that. And then the other option is I can go on a private insurance, Medicare Part C, which is normally called Medicare Advantage. This is not Medicare Advantage. So if you're interested in Medicare Advantage, we'll have to talk about that in another conversation. This is supplemental or Medigap insurance. So there are a number of different Medigap policies. I'm going to start from what I think is probably the most comprehensive policy right now, and that is the G plan. So essentially, G plan pays for everything except for your Medicare Part B deductible. So what does that mean? That means that you have roughly an exposure of $250 a month or a year if you're on a Part G plan. It is the most comprehensive plan in my view. The most I'm going to pay any time of the to anyone to any point in time for the year is that $250 deductible. It is the Medicare Part B deductible. As soon as I meet that deductible, everything else is covered. I can go to any doctor that takes Medicare. I can go to anywhere I want to go. If I want to go to a specialist at Cleveland Clinic, or I want to go to someone at the Sloan Kettering Center in New York, or I want to go to Mount Sinai or some great place in Texas or California, I'm covered, right? I don't have to worry about that. And the most I'm ever going to pay is that Medicare Part B deductible. If So let's take a look through this really quickly. You can see that everything is covered. The one thing I do want to point out is the Part B excess charge. You will see that the G plan covers the Part B excess charge. So if a doctor charges more than what is recommended by Medicare or allowed by Medicare, you're still covered, right? So these G plans cover all of that. Now, if I'm traveling in a foreign way and I have an emergency, it will cover 80%. There is no out-of-pocket limit, which means, that's not it's not that there isn't an out-of-pocket limit, it's that I'm not forced to have a max out-of-pocket limit. And so what that means is G will cover whatever it is, other than the Part B deductible, which is roughly about $250. Right? So that's a really strong plan. I'm going to tell you that if you were born after 2020, you're not eligible for CNF. If you were on Medicare, I'm sorry, if you were on Medicare after 2020, January 2020, you're not eligible for CNF. So I'm going to assume that's the case. If you went on Medicare before 2020, that was 5 years ago, you may still have eligibility for those plans. And you can see, Plan F is the only other plan that sort of maps out well with G, and it actually did something one extra. It actually paid the Part B deductible, which is roughly the $250 a month. I have a lot of people who go on Plan N, and I would just highlight that Plan N does not pay for your Part B deductible, just like G, but also does not pay for excess charges. If a provider charges you more than what Medicare will cover, you are responsible for that, right? And so Plan N is one that I see a lot of. You see AARP's plan, they have both G and N. What you're going to find is that N's are going to be a little bit more price sets, uh, are going to be a little bit cheaper, right? And I would say that in general, as I look at all the plans, as we get down into different situations, you're going to get some price reduction because they offer less services. So G is going to be probably the most expensive right now, N is going to be a little bit cheaper. Um, but we'll go through and just kind of look at some of the things that, your plan, if you go on a plan, you may or may not get. So in a Plan A scenario, skilled nursing facility is not covered. Um, there isn't the Part A deductible is not covered, Part B deductible is not covered, and excess charges are not covered, and you cannot get coverage when you're outside the country. From a Plan B perspective, it's the same as Plan A, other than your Part A deductible is covered, and that's hospitalization, so that can be very helpful financially, right? If I said C and F, we won't cover. So Plan D, you can see that they don't cover the Part B deductible, which is not a huge deal because it's, the $250 a month, but they don't cover excess charges as well, right? And so, that can be a large amount if you're going to doctors that are, more expensive, highly specialized, and, are not accepting the Medicare rates. Okay, they have incremental charges to the medical rates. We talked about G, but I do want to mention on G, there is something called a high deductible G plan, which is significantly less expensive, and maybe one of the cheapest plans you can get. But it does come with roughly about a $3,000 deductible. So for healthy years, that's great, right? Because you're going to spend a lot less money. The problem is you don't really know when you're going to have a healthy year and not have a healthy year. And so that's important. But I would argue that for some plans, that the difference you're going to save in the deductible versus your monthly premium, it's going to be about the same. So even in an unhealthy year, you're paying about the same amount. And what I mean by that is if the plan, high deductible G plan, costs you $75 a month, but a um, a uh, a regular G plan costs you 300 a month, right? You're going to be essentially saving, I don't have the math in front of me, but maybe about $2,700 a year in a high deductible G plan. That is approximately, it's a little bit lower, but I think it's usually around $2,800 or $2,900 a year for the deductible. So it's about the same as if you had paid for the full G plan, right? So being on a high deductible G plan and being on a regular G plan can be, in many cases, a wash or pretty close to it. So think a little bit about that. K plans, you can see there's a lot of issues with K plans. You're going to be paying a lot of co-insurance. You're going to be paying 50% of your costs in many of the factors. Again, they don't cover the excess charges and you can't do any foreign travel, right? L is a little bit better. You can see that. And M is even better than that, but they don't cover the deductible for the Part A. So I think it's really important that you understand this. When you talk to people about this, and if you want to talk to me about it, I'm glad to talk to you about it. I do cover New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, Indiana, and Florida. So you're welcome to call me and chat with me or message me, either one or the other. But I think the key thing here is that you understand that you have multiple options when it comes to increasing your coverage and having more options when you choose a doctor. So I'll leave you with that. but please get to know this chart. Feel free to Google it yourself and see, how things are updated from year to year, but this is the latest one.